Hi everybody, I'm Philip Ideson and I want to welcome you to this week's episode of the Hard Truth podcast, where successful entrepreneur and Peterborough United chairman Darragh MacAnthony goes behind the scenes with me on the business of football. And this week I have questions for Darragh lined up to discuss the final weekend of the season, whether or not the EFL should be responsible for ensuring situations such as Wigan should not occur again, the silly season of transfer rumours, the ever-moving target of the proposed salary cap that we talked about last week, and time permitting, hopefully we'll get to some other questions that we got in. So, Darragh, how have you been doing this week?
Phil, welcome to episode 13. It's an unlucky number, 13.
I know, right?
We'll have to smash that myth and have a great episode. All good, pal. Ready to travel tomorrow. First time I've travelled in like 5.5 months, which is the longest I've ever been with my family in one stretch. And finally getting to the UK. And then I'm there for like 2 months. So just kind of last minute crap running around and cleaning up. But good to see you.
Yeah, so the family are ready to kick you out the door as well.
To be fair, yeah, I mean, my missus' liver will be happy because we've been drinking so much during lockdown. We were saying it last night over a bottle of wine. We were like, I'll go cold turkey for like 60 days, lose a load of weight, and she'll do the same. So, I'm going to miss them as the kids obviously go back to school and stuff, but this is real life. I got to go to work.
Yep.
So, and as much work as you can do from Zoom, as you know, in business, face to face, and
it's where it happens,
with a social
really.
distance involved, is where it's happening. And our season's about to kick into gear, so I need to get my ass in gear.
All right. Well, good luck with the flights.
Yeah, geez, don't even start with me. And the 14-day quarantine when I arrive. My goodness.
So I want to talk, first of all, just about the last week. We've watched some drama unfold on the field. We had the final day of the Premier League season and the Championship. Did it go as you expected?
The Championship didn't. I mean, Barnsley, I have to say, they are like the king of like last minute action. I remember a few years ago when they went on this run. They were like, I think, near the bottom of League One. Lee Johnson was manager. They lost like 8-9 in a row. And then they went on this unbelievable run, but they needed to win like the final 6 games of the season to even have a sniff and get in above Scunthorpe on the final day. And we played them with like 3-4 games to go. And I always remember Forrester, our player, got sent off. It was ridiculous. Their player acted up over it, with a stamp on his foot. And Barnsley scored with the last kick of the game practically, last minute. And if they hadn't, they would never have gone up because they went in a run, they got in the playoffs and went up, and fair play. And watching them do it again the other night, I mean, fair play as a club. I mean, they went right to the end and fought. And I guess it makes a mockery of points per game when you look at the 3 clubs that stayed up and the 3 clubs that went down are completely different, right, from when it started. And Luton, Barnsley, and who else climbed out of there? Who have I missed? Luton, Barnsley. There was someone else in there at the time, wasn't there? Yeah,
it's like Middlesbrough maybe with a third bottom.
Somebody else was in there, and wow. I mean, fair play.
Yeah.
I mean, that's where you've got bollocks, as a football club. Knowing the final day, you got to go win. Unfortunately, I've seen great things happen for my club in that way, and I've seen horrible things happen.
Yeah, it's either the best day or it's the worst day, isn't it?
Correct. And to be a Wigan supporter, the run their team were on, I mean, really, they were a top 10 championship team. And, to see what happened to Charlton, you fell for Lee Boyer. I mean, I heard his interview. I had 5 games I was watching. And you were gutted for like Lee Boyer at Charlton, and the difference maybe if their striker Lyle Taylor had played.
It's one goal or something like that.
Yeah, it's really funny. One goal, like we're arguing about Bournemouth, going down because of not VAR but goal line technology in the Villa game. Was it the Villa game?
Yeah, it was when it crossed the line and they missed it.
Over the line. Yeah. But so the Championship was brilliant. I mean, brilliant, and that's probably what hurts the most being in League One, because it would have been probably similar. So many clubs were involved, but it was great advertisement for our game. And there's that sense of pride when you see it, like, oh wow. I mean, that's like, because usually people are like, oh, do you follow a relegation kind of battle? Well, let me tell you, that was as exciting as a league title battle. Leeds, I would have put my life in them going up this season. West Brom, magnificent again. Bilic, what a job he's done. Particularly when you don't think they haven't really spent that much money. Gutted for Brentford, because they're probably post-COVID the best team in the Championship, up until the final couple of games, but they still got a chance in the playoffs. And then you've obviously got like what happened with Nottingham Forest. I mean, there's so many dramas. There was relegation drama, and then there was playoff drama. I mean, again, that team has to score 4 and we can't concede 4, and then holy moly. I mean, you really feel like you're kind of cursed
Yep.
if shit like that happens to
You go into that final day thinking you know all the permutations, and then something
and if
else
that
throws you a
permutation happens, you're
curveball.
cursed. So, but that is the beauty of football.
Yeah.
I mean, that is the romance of football. And then the Premier League I watched on was a Sunday. I was watching in here. I was watching the United Leicester game, and then I was clicking over to Bournemouth and then the Villa West Ham game.
Yep.
And I was gutted for Bournemouth.
Yeah.
And I know Eddie Howe is taking a bit of stick off some people, but the injuries they've had this year to take it to the final kick of the season, and again nearly stay up for like 6 years in a row, he is so underrated. I think they will destroy the Championship next year. I know they're going to have to sell King, they're going to have to sell Ake, and they're going to have to sell Wilson. But the way they replace and recruit, I think, and the way he plays football, right now he'll be down and he'll feel like he's had the biggest kick in the bollocks ever. And he'll probably feel like quitting. My manager did a few years ago when that happened to us. But that's where people around you have to kick into gear. Like, I'm a bad loser, but 24 hours later, I'm a great motivator.
Yeah, kick into reality again. And,
Correct. You go again.
You talk a lot about the power of momentum.
Yeah.
And, when you talked about, for example, Brentford, well, maybe they carry the momentum of having a strong end to the season, except for the last 2 games, or maybe that last couple of bad ones are going to suffer against them in the playoffs. For Eddie Howe, it's about arresting that. Let's not be a Huddersfield
No chance.
and a Sunderland or the teams
No
that have
chance.
kind of fallen down and
They got a
actually
billionaire owner.
get right back up there.
No
again.
chance. I mean, you talk about Sunderland. It was, it was kind of publicised about Ellis Short, and he'd spent 150 million. I think the Bournemouth owner is a lot wealthier, and so there's no comparison. I'd be amazed if Bournemouth went down that route unless the owner, shipped
decides
up
he's
and
had
left.
enough.
Yeah, and you got a great manager like Eddie Howe. Bournemouth are going to have a lot of players that went through League One, Championship, promotion, and played in the Premier League for 5 years. You see the back four. I think they've got 3 or 4 defenders who've been around. They're going to go and recruit. Yeah. They're going to have to abide by financial fair play. And you've got a year, 2 years max to get their act to go back up. I think Bournemouth will be a very, very good. They got young Brooks. They'll keep. He's an exciting young player. I think their biggest battle is getting the right sports science and physios in, and that, because their injuries. There's something going on there. You can legislate for a bad luck run of injuries. We had one last Christmas, and it hurt us for 6 weeks. Then eventually, if it goes on longer, as an owner, you're asking the question, have we got the right people here? Because now you got 20 players.
There's
with
bad
injuries.
luck, and then there's every player getting a hammy injury.
Right, and then you're thinking, is this incompetence or is this just bad luck?
Yeah.
So Bournemouth have just had a horrendous run with injuries, and I think they're going to be in good shape. I think when he licks his wounds, he's a Bournemouth kid, a guy, he lives in the area, he ain't going to want to leave. I could be wrong, but I hope to see him bounce back because I think he's a great manager.
So as an owner, you look at, essentially you're looking at, as a Championship side, you're now a local business, and a Premier League side, you're a global brand.
Yeah.
How do you even think about scaling that? And we talk about scaling it up, but how do you scale it down, when relegation happens?
Well, it's really difficult, and I guess you have to lay the seeds early on. So say Peterborough United's in the Championship. Yeah. So what we do when you sign players is you have a pay bump if they get promoted. So say I sign Phil tomorrow, you're on $5,000 a week in the Championship. Yeah. In your contract is Premier League $10,000 a week or $15,000 a week. Championship 5, League 1 2.5, League 2 2.
Yeah.
You have to cover your bases.
Yeah.
So in the event we go up and we come down again, your salary is already pre-budgeted.
Yeah, he's not going up to the 10 or whatever, and now you're stuck there if you get relegated.
If Phil's
again.
on $30,000 a week and it's just a flat $30,000 a week in his contract, we're screwed if we come down, if we have every player on that.
Yeah.
So there is a lot of housekeeping to get in gear, but I would imagine they've planned for it already. And I guess when you have assets to sell, so say we're using Bournemouth as an example, Watford could be another one. Yeah. You sell players and take in 60, 70 million. Your first year, there's going to be a serious readjustment. Norwich is probably a good model for it. They came down a couple of years ago and they obviously went out, they sold Maddison, they sold a couple of big hitters. Yeah. One of the boys they got from Newcastle, I forget, they're like the brothers, twins, aren't they? They'd signed him and then sold him, I think. So what Norwich did there was they got rid of the big hitters, they brought in younger players. They use the money to offset the losses from the Prem, because it's a massive loss. I mean, you're talking about 100 million. And you're right, you go from being a global brand to being a big brand in your city. So those adjustments need to be in place before you're even coming down from the Premier League. And we do that. We have a plan B and a plan A and a plan C. And all in our players' contracts, there's a pay bump for going up, there's a pay bump for coming down. So that's key. And any club who doesn't have that in their contracts, bar Liverpool, Man United, Man City, you're incompetent at running your football club, because you have to have that in contracts.
Now, one of the things that it's kind of unknown at the moment is who is actually going to come down to League One, essentially. We talk about who was in the relegation races, but you got the Wigan appeal going on. You got Sheffield Wednesday not finding out what's going on with them. Does that actually impact, as a League One owner, your financial planning? Because you may think, hey, I've got Charlton coming down and I got Barnsley coming down, so I think we could give those a real go if we invest at a certain level. But if it's, I got Wigan coming down, I got Sheffield Wednesday coming down, they're so far in terms of funds that they'll have access to different than me. No. Maybe I'll settle for investing for the playoffs.
We touched upon it last week. The EFL needed to sort that out earlier because to have all that disarray and uncertainty, if you're a Barnsley, you're a championship club.
Right.
And now you're thinking, crikey, if someone wins an appeal, we're down. So now we can't sign players. What do we do? How do we operate? So they need to get that under control now. That needs the next 7 days, the decision needs to be made. And there needs to be an appeal process that's even quicker if someone appeals.
Yeah.
Personally,
which they will, probably.
Which they will. Personally, I think, look, Wigan went into administration. The rules are in place for administration. I'm sorry, you can't get around the rules. I think the rules are 12 points, so they're going down. Yeah. Sheffield Wednesday will probably get a slap on the arse cheeks, a couple of points, a few quid. Yeah. I'm not sure it'll be enough to
suspended
take them down.
In case you do it again.
A lot of that. Does it affect the way we plan? No, never. We never ever plan like that as regards to the big giants in our league. I mean, you got to remember, we've got Ipswich, we've got Sunderland, we've got Portsmouth, we've already got big clubs in our league. The promotions we've won historically, we had Leeds, Sheffield Wednesday, Sheffield United in League One. We had Leicester, we were vying for the title. When we went top with like 5 games to go in League One, Leicester were ended up pipping us. Look at Leicester now. Yeah. In that year when we went up, I think we beat Leeds. Leeds were in our league. Sheffield Wednesday were in our league. We beat them 4-1 away. So they're big clubs in name. And you're right. Sheffield Wednesday coming down, Wigan are going to be strong next year. Those clubs coming down are big clubs anyway. Yeah. You just have to deal with that as you go along. Yeah.
All right. I want to stay on the theme of Wigan a little bit and the fit and proper test. Now, whenever there's a club that is in financial difficulties, whether they go into administration, whatever it may be, you suddenly get this outcry that, well, the EFL's fit and proper person test failed. It's all the EFL's fault. Sure. They should have seen this coming. My question is really is that really the EFL's role? I mean, the EFL can't keep out. They don't know the intentions of somebody when they.
Sure.
And so how deep do you dig?
It's a really difficult one. And speaking from experience, when I brought my partners on board and they bought half the club off me, they went through, it was like going to a proctologist.
Right.
The inside of their asshole was looked at. So I'm not sure why some things have slipped through the gaps. And even to the point where even though they'd sent over a lot of information and showed the financials, that they had the finances to buy half the club, they still had to go and almost kiss the ring of the person who was in charge of the EFL and go meet him face to face before he'd sign off, even though they were in Canada. So to see some of the stuff that's happened at Wigan, I'm not sure what's going on there. Some of the owners that do creep in and sneak under the radar. It's a really difficult one. You almost want to see a case file on how did that happen? How did Bury happen? Do the EFL have case files for these things that they can release to all the other owners, because we're all part of the same kind of association. We're all members. So we need to know, how does that keep happening? And we need to put a stop to it, because what happened to the Wigan fans was heartbreaking. Never mind Bury and the Bury fans losing their football club. So that can't happen in football anymore. And I've put out my own ideas on what we need to do. I suggested a football czar. Who basically was, if a Wigan happened, the football czar would step in and run Wigan and until a proper owner was found and get to the bottom of it. And because my always worry about these clubs are going to they bring in administrators and pay them tremendous amounts of money. And these administrators aren't football people. And then they're making decisions on selling players and doing deals. Well,
they've only got one fiduciary responsibility.
Correct. The football czar, and I said this about having the experience of worked in football. Let's say Barry Fry. He's not going to be a football czar, but he's 75. He's done more deals than you've had hot dinners. He knows about running football clubs inside out. So he goes in and he spends 6 to 8 months at a club. His job, with the Football League's permission, is to operate and run the football club, to get the best value, to sell assets so you can pay bills, to make sure the club is in business, and to find the right owner, and to be part of the process. There's a fund that's created by the Football League, and I said this like it was 20 million I'd put up or whatever else, that Barry can borrow from the football fund to operate Wigan till you get an owner, and the new owner comes in, will pay back the fund with interest. That way then it will protect against clubs going out of business.
Yeah.
And it's the right thing to do. And you got football people in there who know what they're doing. I'm not having to go with auditors and accountants and administrators, but they're getting paid 20, 30, 40 grand a month, some of these people, to go in and do what? Strip and strip and strip. So for me, that's an easy fix for the EFL. And again, I bang my head against the brick wall. I've said it multiple times. I'll say it again. Let's get our fucking house in order.
Well, maybe onto a happier note, I want to talk about pre-season. Talk about some football.
Football's back.
So, you just mentioned that you're heading over to back to England, I think, tomorrow. As we record and publish this, it'll be, I guess, while you're in the air. What does pre-season look like for you as an owner?
In any typical year without COVID, it usually looks like I take my family over to the UK to start of June. We kind of hunker down in our house in the UK for a good 8 weeks. Yeah. Kids then go back in August. I stay behind for the season to start. The players report back end of June. Then around the middle of July, we head off to either Portugal or Spain. We plan to do the same this year. And then obviously COVID. Yeah. Then we plan to go to Scotland. But then the manager was like, well, I don't want to get in a plane. I don't want to get in a coach. So we did a deal with St. George's. For us, the idea behind it is camaraderie you want to build. The unity. You want to get a team together. Because we've been apart for 6 months, we just thought, let's get everyone together for 5-6 days. We stay in a nice hotel in St. George's. They've got great facilities. All our media people don't have to stay. They can travel up from Peterborough. We're going to have 2 games there on the Tuesday and the Wednesday. We've already got, I think, I forget who we're playing. I've got the fixture list. So, and what it is, it's a great chance for owners, the manager, the coaches, everyone to spend a bit of time together, get a bit of loving going on. Yep. For someone like me, it's great to get around the players, because you don't spend as much time during the season. And when I say get around the players, just talk to them about their families, about life.
Get to know them, make them feel comfortable at the club.
Correct. Chew the fat, talk shit, whatever. You know what I mean? So that for me is what it's all about. I've always enjoyed it. We've been all over the world doing it. Our plan this year was with promotion, we were going to go to America. We were going to go and do a tour of like New York and Boston and play like a couple of MLS teams. So we'd like even pre-planned that based on, going up. So, and that's something I really want to do in the future, is get a US tour going for us, So it's going to be weird. I guess there's going to be mask wearing, social distancing. There's going to be like empty stadiums. We watch pre-season friendlies. It'll be new for me. Yeah. I'm looking forward to it because I'm just so starved of like football for my own football club. So I guess whether or not just watching the lads play each other, I'd probably get the horn watching that.
so on a day-to-day basis, I mean, are you spending all your time on with agents and things, or you down the training ground just kind of catching up and seeing what's going on? How does when you're coming over for the football, you're mostly vested in the football.
Big time.
What are you spending your time doing?
My time is, meeting agents, meeting players. Like last year, I met Mo Isa, his agent did the deal. Baz was away at the time. I'll meet a lot of agents. I usually meet them near where my house is in Surrey. I'll meet them in a hotel to talk about things. We've obviously got players we're going to try and bring in. We're not in a hurry. There's time still on our side. We've got players who will leave. There's contracts to be. There's a lot going on. Plus, then there also is the whole COVID cost-cutting measures and deals to be done. So there's a lot of work when I get to the UK. I think like after I get over and I've done my isolation, I've got like 6 meetings lined up. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of planning. My partners are coming over as well from Canada. Yep. We'll get a chance to have an owners meeting. We like to have 2 of those a year where it's like in person. Yep. And we'll probably spend a day going through that. And then where Barry and the manager will come in and sit with us during the owners meeting. So I will be busy. In any given year when my family go back, usually I always stay behind in August because the window closes at the end of August. There's no point in me being stuck in America. I like to be there for if there's any action. Or
you need to make some pretty quick decisions as well. Correct. I'm sure, as the window kind of comes to a close.
Correct, and it's a bit different this year. But I am going over on like an 8-week. It's an 8-week trip because, as I said, I've hardly been in the UK this year because of this whole lockdown.
One of the things that is interesting about pre-season is you often get a lot of trialists as you're figuring out who to sign. And I know for our club, I was reading about the fact that's not going to happen this year because you got all the testing protocol and everything of introducing new players into the bunch. How has coronavirus impacted scouting at all, and how you're going about actually looking for who you do want to bring into the club?
It's a great question. And I had to, my scouts obviously been furloughed. You know, the guys working for me, I've got a young guy and a young analyst, and they do a lot of work for me. They have full-time jobs, and they're itching, you know, particularly the young one, the scouts itching to get back. And I'd say to them today, look, but there's still no scouting. There's, you know, there's no work for you.
Yeah.
And I hate saying that. As regards to the testing, those protocols are changing next week.
Okay.
So you don't have to test every week. I think you test once when your players come back, and then you test again before the season starts. So that is changing. So financially, that's good news. What you've also got, like we tested all our players last week. Our players have been back a week now, and we had 0. So it was good news. Do you know what I mean? From a scouting perspective, I guess it depends on who's allowed in stadiums.
Yeah.
Because, you know, if I'm sending a player to Crewe on a Tuesday night, or Crewe going to let a scout from Peterborough United in when there's already no fans.
Yeah.
So I don't know is the answer to the question. There's still so much we don't know. We still don't know, come October when fans are allowed back in, how many are allowed back in. We still have staff on furlough. We need to get them off furlough. You know, right now our stadium, you know, we have a whole team on the stadium. You know, people have been brought off furlough to get back to work to make sure the stadium's like in working order, cleaned up, and you know, all that kind of crap. So I guess we're going to learn as we go along. I mean, today I got sent like a load of new bump from the EFL. There was like new protocols. I mean, it was like a 90-page document that came over. So I didn't even get into reading that before you came. Do you know what I mean? So it just changes all the time. So
you know, this is silly season for transfer rumours as well, and you know, you being on Twitter as well, you're frequently asked about a variety of different rumours that have been reported somewhere, and I think it's fair to say that the vast majority of those you're responding to say, you know, there's no truth whatsoever in that.
I'm trying not to do too much responding because you know, people like accuse me of setting other clubs, blah blah blah, but when I see like figures that come out and they insult me and they wind me up, because that also then, if that becomes a story, other clubs who want to come in and buy a player think they're the right figures.
Yep.
And it's like, no, don't fucking take the piss. That's not the right figures. And yeah, we have a player at the moment everyone in the country wants, which is a great position to be in. We'd love to keep him. But that player can go and make himself a multimillionaire when he gets his move. So the reality is he'll go. Where he will go, I have no idea. There's a lot of clubs in the mix. There's some big clubs in the mix. And there's some great, you know, up-and-coming clubs in the mix. At the end of the day, we have a figure. Once you reach the figure, it's up to you to discuss terms with the player. And I'm not going to say anything about those clubs because that's where you have an agreement with another club. When you do a deal on a player, it's discretion. So, and I've always been really good at that, to the point when a club signs a player, I let them announce it. I let them, if they want to do it undisclosed, that's on them. A lot of clubs don't want to talk about what they paid. But I'm certainly not going to let journalists put out figures that are fucking nonsense, because that just insults my intelligence. And it's not going to happen.
Where do you think those numbers come from?
Agents, clubs who maybe want to buy the player, trying to take the piss. You know, and anyone who's dealt with me, and then you talk to the hardest agent in the business, and they'll say, fucking hell, that MacAnthony and Fry, you know, they are tough to deal with. So the idea that people can take the mick and like undercut us or try and do, you know, we the club try and do that last week, and I, you know, laughed them out of the fucking place, you know, and whatever else. And that's not any of the clubs that were mentioned today in relation to this, but it just happens all the time. So know who you're dealing with, and I like to be transparent. You know, like my Twitter's blown up today because obviously I answered that question and just said, look, bollocks, you know what I mean, and whatever else to the figures involved. It's going to be like this probably for a while, because now the Prem was finished. Now you're going to have those clubs
find
join the
something
party.
to talk about.
You know, it's look, that is the business. That's what we're in. That's what we do. We as a football, look, it's not my first rodeo. When you go through the list of players we've sold and the deals we've done, so I'm kind of like know what to expect. I know how to operate. I know how it's dealt with. But I just hate that false information. Like, I was getting asked about American players were apparently signing last night. I didn't even hear this fucking kid that someone had tweeted at me. I had to look him up. Now, usually my information about players is second to none. But this was one that caught me cold. I was like, where's this one come from? So that could be, again, an agent of that player putting it out there. And then you get other owners who look at it and go, oh, who's this? Because Peterborough's a great hook to put that they're interested in your player. Because a lot of people think, because of our transfer record, well, if Peterborough are looking at that player, Christ, there must be something in that.
They see something.
And that's how it works. And then you're off and running, you know?
So how do you set like the transfer fee or price? How do you put a price on somebody, essentially? You know, are you looking at it, is it just purely market dynamics driven, or are you saying, I've got this number in mind and now it's my job as a owner of that player to go and pitch why he is worth that amount of money?
Yeah, I mean, I don't pitch why a player's worth that much money. The player's statistics, the player's talent, the player's demand will make that the figure.
Yeah.
And when you have a player one club wants, it's difficult to get a number you want.
Yeah.
When there's a player multiple clubs want, and particularly when it's a striker. Striker's a bit like a dinosaur. They're an endangered species, particularly one that's young, prolific, athletic, physical. They just you just can't find them. And people can go, it's League One. Forget all that fucking nonsense. You know what I mean? We've seen it over the years. How many players have come from League One?
Yeah.
Golden Boot winner.
Yeah, Jamie Vardy
in the Premier League this year, didn't even play in League fucking One. And he's just, he's gone from non-league to the champ to the Prem, and now he's a Golden Boot winner. So I don't want to hear about League One. Callum Wilson was League One. So these players have done it. Michael Antonio, who's West Ham's best player post-COVID, came from non-league. We nearly took him years ago when he was a winger. So the point is that demand dictates the price. And when you're in the fortunate position to have a player that every club out there who's looking for a striker wants, and that's where it becomes interesting. Yeah. But I'm a fair person. If a club does it right and meets, the requirement, I'm good to negotiate with. Yeah. I've negotiated enough deals. I was negotiating a deal the last 2 weeks. And I'm fair to negotiate. I'm not an asshole. I'm very straight and very transparent with a club. And clubs who've done business with me directly will tell you that. There's never been any bullshit about me. And I don't pull deals. I had a deal pulled on me last year. We agreed a deal for a player in League Two. And it took us a week. We got it all agreed. And then they pulled the deal because they wanted to sell him to someone who was paying 50 more grand. Yeah. And that's incorrect. If I agree a deal, whether it be Ivan Toney, whether it's Sammy, whoever it might be who plays for us, and it's X, and then someone comes in and offers Y higher, I'm not going to change the X. I'll accept both. I'll accept the higher. I'll accept that, and then the player. And that is the right way to do it. Yeah. You can't screw clubs over.
Yeah, and I'm sure that it's a small world, so you kind of get the reputation of if you're fair to deal with, people are more likely to deal with you.
Absolutely. Like Baz is great. He's been in the game a long time, and people go, "Oh, fucking Barry Fry, he always wants too much money," and blah blah blah. But they know he's good to deal with. Yeah. And there's some really really good people in football to deal with. Like really, really good people. Like Bristol City were really, really good to deal with, when we were doing the Moisa thing and then some stuff recently. Barnet, when we bought Jack Taylor, they were really, really tough as nails. Tony's like tough. I wanted $1 million, non-league player, would have been like a non-league record matching Jamie Vardy. And those clubs are great clubs because they understand football. They might be tough on the outside, but when it comes down to the negotiating, they understand and they work with you. Yeah. And there are some clubs that are really, really good like that.
Well, I want to head into the first break. We're going to bring some breaks into the
Good
pod.
News.
And then when we come back, we're going to take some listener Q&A. And I have some questions on the moving target of the salary cap that I thought we'd done to death last week. And then, you get home and you open the paper.
It changes.
And it's all changed again. So we'll be back in a couple of moments. Thanks for listening in to today's podcast. Stay tuned all the way to the end of the show to hear how you can win a season ticket to the English team of your choice. Well, welcome back to the podcast today. And, I teased just before the break there that we're going to go into some questions from the listeners. I want to start on salary cap again. Like I said before, we thought we knew where we stood and there was going to be a vote tomorrow. Now I think the vote's been pushed back a week and there's some giant loopholes appearing, to put it mildly, and I'm sure a lot more. So what the heck's going on?
Don't know. I think the big clubs might be getting their way, are they? You tell me, Philip, as I'm still confused to fuck.
Well, all I know is that Bradford City seem happy, so I imagine that there's some loopholes that has been...
there's no perfect science with salary cap. We spoke about it last week, and I think it still needs a lot of work. Maybe we were too ambitious trying to get it in so quick. Maybe it needed like a season to perfect it. And I think that's what you're probably finding. And now them putting it back means you can sign players now that I don't think count towards any salary cap. Right. So I guess it's going to evolve. But I still stand by it's needed. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the question seems to still be is what the heck's it going to look like rather than is there going to be one?
It's needed. And it's going to be interesting where it goes. This season's going to be really interesting. I mean, so many different permutations. I mean, I look at League One now with Wigan. And if he keeps his job and all his players, new owner comes in, you don't know what's going to happen. You'd probably think Wigan are going to walk the league because of the form they were in.
Yeah, I mean, like you said before the break, I mean, they're a top top half championship
Correct.
table in terms of how they've been playing the last 2 months.
Absolutely. And a lot of players in that team who've dominated League One.
Yeah.
So, I'd be very, very surprised if they weren't right up there. Charlton, you don't know with the new owner what they're going to do. He's lost a lot of players. So that's going to be a brand new team. But he's won promotion before.
Yeah.
So if he stays, they've got a hell of a chance. It was the Hull. Jeez, don't get me started on that. I don't know where to start. I mean, they haven't won a game since January, I think. Yeah. So, gutted for my ex-gaffer. Is he still there?
Yeah.
Well, yes, so it'll be interesting to see what happens. But again, a lot of rebuilding. It's really going to be a fascinating League One next year.
So one of the questions, in fact, I want to go back just to talk about agents again.
Sure.
And, we feel like we've been beating up agents a lot, and that's not necessarily the intent, but I think, there's some natural, what's the right word, adversary between football club owners and agents. Do you feel that the numbers that are being thrown around by agents at the moment have come to the reality of what football looks like post-COVID, or are we still in this pre-COVID, I'm going to try and get what I can?
I think, agents could do it hiring a good PR firm for themselves. Because obviously, the headlines are always really negative about agents, And I've always said this. I've had a few I've had massive rucks and wars with. And then there's a few I love working with. Yeah. They're like really, really good to work with. And they get an unfair, rep at times, reputation. Right now, from what I'm seeing and dealing with a few, they got their head in the clouds. You're coming off a pandemic. Yeah. You're coming off a financial reckoning. There's a realisation there's so many people out of work in League One and League Two. There's over 1,000 unemployed footballers. So you got agents still coming on. I had one last week and saying, look, Premier League youngster, we want year one, $2,500 year two. And I'm like, what would the player on at this Premier League club? £900 a week. Yeah. Said, so you want him to double his money coming to League One? Well, I'm like, you know what, get your head out of your arse. You've no fucking idea what's going on in the football world. And I've seen clubs and I've seen some of the figures quoted in League One, League Two, where players have to realise paydays are over in League One and League Two for a while. They are. And the incentive there for League One and League Two players is to win promotions. Because the only way you're going to earn serious good dough is Championship onwards. League One, League Two, even the days of 4s and 5s a week, they're gone, in my opinion. And I think most clubs now, with knowing on the horizon there is a salary cap, with knowing the financial issues we're all going to deal with and going to have to juggle, no one's going to want to be paying 4, 5, 6 grand a week to footballers. This just can't happen. So players and agents have to wake up, because the biggest issue with an agent is they will tell the player and fill their head with shit. No disrespect to young players, but they could do it thinking for themselves sometimes. Like, a young player has to realise, stop saying, oh, speak to my agent, or I'm listening to my agent. Think for yourself. Use your fucking intelligence. Use your brain. That with what's going on in the world, there ain't a line of clubs out there who want to pay you £2,000 a week when you haven't got the cradle marks off your arse cheeks and you're coming out of a Premier League academy and now you expect to earn $100,000 a year. You've never played a minute in League One or League Two. No disrespect. There's a lot of footballers out there competing for your job.
It's a different game as well.
Completely.
What's going to be interesting is, agents at the end of the day need to get paid too. Correct. And so how that's going to change, how their advice is going to change when they haven't had a payday for a while because they're not being able to get the deals.
Big time. And I'd say, I'd go as far as to say a few agents who are owed fees in the summer were probably, I'd say, put off. And you find a lot of them are hungry. Look, I get everyone has to eat. Everyone wants to earn a buck. We don't work in life for free, do we? Right. Unless you do a podcast. So I understand that, but common sense. I mean, that's my biggest thing I tell my kids, common fucking sense, So I'll say the same to agents, show some common sense.
So I got a question that has come in from multiple listeners. And I'll tell you what the question is, but I'm going to reframe it. Okay. The questions are typically, and I think this is because you're got such a high profile on Twitter, fans coming in saying, if you would ever be interested in owning another club after Peterborough, who would that be? Okay. I'm going to reframe the question so you don't have to answer that question to say that what characteristics make a club attractive from an investment perspective?
So my answer to that question would be, if I'm not at Peterborough, would I buy another club? Hell yeah, all day long. Football's a drug. Yeah, I'm addicted. So I love owning a football club. And way back when I was doing a deal to sell the Posh, originally it was to sell the whole thing. Yeah. Before, the deal ended up me staying on and 50-50. So at that point, I was starting to look at other options, potentially for clubs. So what would constitute a good club? That club could be National League South, North, the Premier. You could even probably go as far as the Ryman League still exist. It depends on, I guess what you got to look at is you got to look at the growth factor.
Yeah.
Is the club in a city that's on the up? Is it in an area where it's a sleeping giant?
Yep.
Example, if someone bought your beloved Bradford and they did what I did 15 years ago and went back to back with promotions to the championship, what would you get crowds wise in the championship?
Yeah, I'd be full of 26,000.
So you would now become a top 8, top 9 championship club on attendance, I think, which would make you a pretty big football club. So if I bought Bradford and paid £1 for it back then, spent a few million and got them to the championship, suddenly that club could be worth 30, 40 million. So there is so much potential in clubs like Bradford. The same argument would be for Coventry 2 years ago when they dropped into League Two. And fair play to the owners who get a lot of flack and their fans. They've stayed with it and they're now back in the championship. So Coventry is suddenly no longer a sleeping giant. They're back in the business. So there are always clubs out there, and there will be a lot more in the coming 18 months, that if I wasn't at Peterborough, I would definitely be, going in and doing deals. And implementing my policies and my philosophies at that club. And whilst not always the most popular guy on social media, because my being vocal, and not everyone's cup of tea, you know what? My heart's in the right place. I'm not buying a football club to make money.
Right.
I'm buying it because I love football. And I think every fan should want an owner or a director who loves football more than a dollar.
Do you find, and again, not asking to name names or anything like that, do you find that most football club owners, as they're coming into football club ownership at the moment, are in it for the love, or whether we are now finding that, folks are looking at it as a business opportunity, and as soon as it appears that that's an investment that's not working, it's time to bail? Because we're seeing so much turnover right now. And, you look at the league table, the championship, for example, we talked about, clubs getting relegated, all associated with owners that they're having some turbulent times. That translates to on the field.
I think you get into the local and international thing. I think club fans quite like when a local person buys a club, like a Dean Hoyle at Huddersfield, even the new Huddersfield owner, it's a Huddersfield fan. So fans quite like that. They like the affiliation because it's local. When you start getting foreign owners, and I guess I'm a foreign owner because I came from living in Spain and I'm Irish, you're always a little bit, you got one eye open and one eye closed, right?
Yeah, like what's he doing? What's he doing this for?
Is he where is he from? Is he from Malaysia? Is he this? Is he that? Is it, is there something bigger going on behind the scenes? And that's why I mentioned a place like Malaysia. Is it money laundering? Is it whatever, So there's always going to be the element of suspicion. I've seen so many owners come and go. I've seen them give it the big one, and I might give it the big one, but I've backed it up by winning promotions and trophies, and that's really important. You have to deliver if you're going to give it the big one. And I've seen a lot of owners come in and they've caught a cold, and a really bad one, and they think, oh, this is going to be really easy. There was one owner in particular a couple of years ago, and he was fucking, every time you spoke to him, he was like, I'm going to be in the championship, it'd be a piece of piss. And listen, ended up with their arse spanked, and that happens. God bless them. And I've got no problem with any owner who puts their own money. Any person who puts their money into a football club has my full respect. Full respect. Any owner who strips a football club, who doesn't put any money in and takes out, I fucking despise.
Right.
So there's your difference. And I would always show respect to anybody who buys a club for the right reason, not for the wrong reason. And there's still a lot of honest owners out there. There's a lot of good owners who are local people, from your Accringtons to your Rochdales to your Tranmeres. You go lower down, people behind Barrow who've just joined the league are probably, again, local. They're the stories you want to hear. I think it's Julian's back at Bradford. He's doing a lot of business. Was it Julian?
So Julian is CEO at the moment. So we're owned by Stefan Rupp.
Bradford runs through Julian's veins. So they're the owners, they're the people you want involved. It's the same in our league, I would say. Who'd you go in our league where you would have, clubs again owned locally? Give me an example.
It's like Accrington.
Yeah, you got Andy Holt. I mean, he's Accrington through and through, and he's not in it to make money. He has a passion for football, and he wants to build a club, and he wants to run it the right way. We might not always agree, but his overall way he wants to do it, I respect, and I have a lot of respect for that. And there are other owners like that. Now, there are some foreign owners who are really good owners. I think the Portsmouth owners are good, and they're from the States. The Eisner family, and he's put his sons in and whatever else. They got a good MD, and they pick that up for a snip. That's an absolute jewel. It's a diamond that they'll polish. They've already got it up. They've already had success. They'll get it up again. And they won't overdo it. And they're prudent people. So they won't, a club that's already had its heart ripped out doesn't need another owner doing the same to them. So as much as, say, Pompey fans want to be in the Premier League, after what they went through, they understand, let's take our time this time.
Yeah, as a team that went through administration twice, you don't want that to happen a third time.
Horrible.
And sometimes you lose sight of that.
Correct.
Because, you just get...
You want to win.
You want to win, like you said. But
that's
the reality of, you want to be a little bit more careful.
You want an owner who paid their bills on time, who will give you the flirtation of a good promotion, who will always keep you competitive, who will do their best to stand by the fans and the community and do the right things. That's what you want from an owner. Maybe some Posh fans would want a quieter owner than me. Maybe some people don't disagree the way I go about things. My partners are great partners. I brought really good people on board to the club. And they're people who are passionate and have a genuine love for football. And I think that's really important. And then you have the other owners who will just, no matter what they do, they're going to get hammered, a la Mike Ashley.
Yep.
Or the Sullivan and Goal boys at West Ham. No matter what they do, they're going to get hammered.
Now, when you came on board, and I don't know necessarily the timeline of when you made... not promises is the wrong way to say it, but it's easy to come on and say, hey, we're going to be in the Championship in 2 years.
Oh, I promised.
Hey, we're going to be in the Premier League in 5 years. All those kind of things, Where does that come from? Is that because you're trying to get out of the mindset of failure, or kind of G everybody up along the club to take a new, to realize that things are different?
I'm quite methodical in my approach to things, and when I was building my business and I was a one-man band, I was a 100-man band. When I worked for my car and I didn't have an office, I had the best office ever. I'm not trying to sound a bullshitter. But what I'm trying to say is I talked and assumed I was going to have all these things, and I talked myself into it. So when I bought a football club, I was like, well, I'm not buying it to draw games or lose games or just be a League Two football club or struggle near the bottom. I'm buying it to be successful. And I had a pipe dream of, I wanted 3 back-to-back promotions to get to the Premier League. So in my mind, I believed it. I spoke about believing it. I told the fans what I wanted. I told the staff of the club what I demanded. I put policies in place where if a manager didn't agree with that, they can fucking leave. And I'm a winner. And again, that sounds arrogant, conceited and everything else, but I don't wake up every day planning to lose. I wake up every day planning to win. I want to win in life, and I want to teach my kids the same. I don't sign up to this, everyone gets a participation trophy. I fucking hate that philosophy. I believe it's dog eat dog out there in the world, and I did it with nothing. And I think everyone has the same capability in them and the same ability to... Someone said to me, what's the difference between you and someone else, and selling real estate or doing whatever else? I said, listen, when you get in a room full of people, here's my number one philosophy: be the hardest working fucker in the room. Outwork everyone in that room. You put me down a coal mine, I'm going to outwork that guy next to me in a coal mine. You put me behind the stacking shelves in the supermarket, and I did that when I was a teenager. I'm going to stack more shelves than anyone else. That's my mindset. So my work ethic it's ferocious. And that's why I like to be successful and I like to win. And I expect my football players and football team to have the same work ethic, a ferocious appetite to win.
Not just showing up.
No, there is no showing up. You have to show up, you have to win, and then you leave. And then you rub it in their face. No, I'm only joking.
Well, I'm sure that you saying that puts a lot of pressure on people who aren't used to that.
Always.
So it's when you think of it from a business perspective, you go through business transformation, and there's people who are going to make that, and there's people that aren't going to make it. And it pretty quickly, you get the sense of who's going to be along for the ride and who's been hiding for a long time, and
100%.
they're not comfortable.
Look, you have to, I say this to my children all the time, you have to demand more from yourself. And I say this all the time. I always reach for the stars. I might always get to the stars. I might fall a little short, but a little short's better than where maybe other people fall. Other people basically don't have that work appetite. Maybe they'll settle for normal. Maybe they'll settle for the word average. I don't like words like average. And listen, I love normal because I hate hearing about the new normal, but usually I'm like, nah, I want more. And yeah, you're right. It puts pressure on people. You tell a manager you want, like we had a meeting the other day with a manager on Zoom. What were the expectations for the season? The double. The title and the checker trade, if it's still called the checker trade. And because that's what we want to compete for. And people might laugh and go, "Oh, you finished 7th, or you finished whatever else." Doesn't matter.
You play to win.
We play to win. We set out to win promotion. We don't set out to be mid-table, and we don't set out to fail. I'm like that with everything I do. You know, what did I invest in the other day? I invested in a cleaning company, you know, and it wasn't to be have 10 accounts. It was to have, how do we get 1,000 accounts, and how do we buy other cleaning companies and make it bigger? That's just my mindset and what I do. I'm go big or go home. I'm like that in my life. My missus will tell you the same. I take holidays that way. Everything I do that way. I said it before, I have a real addictive personality. It's probably why I always stayed away from drugs, because I knew if I went down that route, it's a dark route. And probably why, you know, I go long periods without drinking, because I have got an addictive personality. And it's just the way I'm built. I guess it's something in me, I don't know. Do I put too much pressure on people around me? Sure. Do I apologize for it? No. If I improve people's lives and I get more out of them, it's good for them too.
Well, let's go into the final break, and then I have just a couple more questions, and then we'll wrap up today's podcast.
See you after the break.
Hey everybody, welcome back. I have a couple of final questions, one football related, one not football related for Darragh. But before we go there, Darragh, I don't know if you want to share a little bit about a competition that we have in mind for listeners.
Absolutely, competition time. So, you know, to obviously thank all the people who are listening, and we're building up quite a nice little audience here. And a quick reminder as well for advertisers, we've had this week like 5 different advertising requests. So we're open for advertising, sponsorship. Phil's done a whole PDF package. If you need more information, email Phil at...
Yeah, it's going to be contact@hardtruthfootball.com, and that's going to come straight to me.
Perfect. So regards to competition, I am willing to buy one lucky winner's season ticket for when football's back in your stadium. Don't care what league your club's in that you follow, and I've done these before off my YouTube channel. All you have to do, one is subscribe, whether it's on iTunes or Spotify or any other podcast platform. And the next thing you need to do is leave a review. It has to be a 5-star review, of course. So if you want to be part of the competition, you want me to pick, and we will pick random. Usually I get my kids just to come in and pick random and go, there's a list of people, pick one random. And if your ticket's for Aston Villa, for Liverpool, for whoever, within reason, I will buy you a season ticket. So all you have to do is subscribe or leave a good review. A 5-star review on the iTunes or the Spotify platform. Thank you.
All right. And when do we want to time bound that by? So let's...
By the time the next podcast is around.
This time next week. All right. So there's your marching orders.
Call out the winner.
So my football question,
Sure.
I feel like this could come from an agent as well, given the fact we've talked about them. This is from, and I believe it's Reese or Reese Miller, and I'm probably going to have butchered that name whichever way I said it. Are there any particular areas that you're looking at as of Peterborough to strengthen in the summer?
Areas, we need a backup goalie. We need to get one more CM. We probably need a replacement for Ivan. And then we're pretty good. We're very strong at the back. We got good options even at 10. We got Cooper, we got Taz Deemer, we got young Flynn Clark, and we got George Boyd. So there's almost like 4 players at the moment vying for that position, but some of them may have to leave. Again, because you have to make with the salary cap, with everything getting in line. Striker-wise, we're good. We got Dems, we got Ricky, we got Mo Isa, who was like the 3rd leading goal scorer in League One last year, and we still have Ivan. So Ivan goes, he gets replaced. In central midfield, we got Jack Taylor, who I think would be the best CM in League One this year. We got young Kyle Barker. We got Louis Reed, who's come back in unbelievable condition and lost a lot of weight, and we need a 4th in there. And at the back, again, like I said to you, we're really, really strong at centre back, wing back. So 3.
All right, get those pitches in.
Yeah, we're going to go and sign them.
And the non-football question, which is actually really interesting. This is from Ian Mills. Ian asks, if you're about to start a new business during the pandemic, what sort of business do you think could be successful within, basically the current environment?
Yeah, I mean, I was looking at different opportunities during the pandemic. At the start, I panicked like everyone else. I sold a shitload of shares, and I lost a shitload of money when the markets tanked. And then I suddenly watched and thought, fuck, have I made a mistake here? So then I got my bollocks back again, because even people with money lose their bollocks. And so don't feel alone out there if you've got no money or if you have money and you've made like decisions based on fear. I always notice that. I talk about this in business. When I was younger and I didn't have kids, I was fearless. I did things no one would do as regards to risks and made money. And the minute I had children, fuck me, you think differently, you act differently, and I think it affects your like business hormones, whatever you want to call them, your mindset, and it has affected mine. And during the pandemic, me like everyone else, panicking like mad at the start. You're thinking, my God, the markets are falling, everyone's unemployed, it's going to be horrendous, it'll be a bloodbath. And then as time went by, you're like, okay, I sat myself down, had a talking to myself, and thought, you don't want to take this an opportunity, or you don't want to say now's an opportunity to make money out of a pandemic. However, if you're a business person, you have to think that way.
Yep.
So I looked at it and went, how can I make money? First thing is, I'm going to go back into the market, and I'm going to be a little bit more clever. I'm going to take some punts on some stocks that are absolutely buried right now, such as Expedia.
Yep.
People weren't taking holidays.
Yep.
They lost 80% of their share price.
Yep.
I bought some options.
Yep.
I bought some options in online shopping, things like Amazon, Shopify. Did the same there. I went into the usual tech stocks. I took a punt on a cruise line stock.
Right.
Because cruise lines are absolutely rock bottom. So that's me taking a punt. When I take a punt, I mean it's money I can afford to lose.
Right.
Because that's what a punt is.
That's kind of gambling money.
Exactly, it's your gambling money.
Yeah.
Business-wise, I invested in 2 businesses during the pandemic. One was a cleaning business, because obviously cleaning, pandemic, COVID, everything else. And that was probably a couple of months ago. And that was to do with special cleaning factories, schools, all those kind of things that, will react positively to the COVID world we live in.
It's going to be, you talked before about supply demand.
Correct.
I mean, think about supply demand for a cleaning company right now. There's going to be a big imbalance.
Correct. The other thing is, you'd say a lot of online stuff are the things that do well. Can you invest in educational tools? When more and more schools not allowed to go back or don't want to go back, is the educational platform one you look to invest in if you can. It depends on the business you're looking to open. I think the real estate market could take a dive. So if you're a really good listing real estate agent who gets good listings, you might be in for a good time, because you're going to have a shitload of listings. And, the market will get driven down, but there will still be buyers who will be buying knockdown stuff. Opportunities will arise. For people who've lost their jobs, don't panic, don't fear. There will be jobs again. When this shit's behind us, and it will be behind us, people are going to need to hire. And those people who do open new businesses are going to need to hire again. And I said this early on in one of my early podcasts. For me, during the pandemic, when we were sent home and the lockdown came in, there were 2 things that really mattered. One, food in the fridge and keeping your lights on. Nothing else mattered. The bank wasn't going to take you home if you didn't pay your mortgage. The school wasn't going to kick your kids out if you didn't pay your school fees. Do you know what I mean? So you had to make sure that you have those 2 key things. And then once it's over, you come out of it, you get back to work. And if that means you've got to go out and take 3 jobs, you take 3 jobs. If I didn't have any money and I had my kids to feed, I'd go out and I'd stack shelves in the day, I'd work in a bar at night if the bar was open, and I'd probably do a delivery job during the hours I wasn't doing that. I would do whatever it takes. Just get by, get working, get money going again. You got to do what you got to do. I was saying this to my kids the other day, people say, money doesn't make you happy. I always said, well, whoever told you money doesn't make you happy, they don't fucking have any. Because let me tell you, it's an essential need. Everyone needs it. So there are a couple of things I'm working on. I don't want to share them here, because if you start sharing someone else cracking ideas, you might get some clever fucker out there who's got a few dollars and might go out and actually
someone else has gone and done it.
And one of them is actually football, sports related, which I think there's an opportunity coming up over the next couple of years to do something within the industry. So I'm looking at doing that, and possibly with my partners. So for anyone out there, and I've always said this, if you want me to invest in your business, and I'm open to anyone, email me at realdarragh@gmail.com. But don't just email me with, I have this idea. Be professional and send a fucking proposal. The amount of people who send me a paragraph, I want to open up a fishing farm and I need 20 grand. Oh, that's great. Yeah, no problem. What's your bank details?
Where do I wire it to?
Correct. Send me a real good proposal and get to the bottom line in the proposal. Keep it sharp. You know what I mean? And whatever. I've done a few Zoom investment calls with people who are looking, to launch businesses. So I obviously had a few calls with them, whatever else during the pandemic. And I'm always looking to invest. My partner's always looking to invest. They're prolific tech investors. That's what they do. Me, not so much over the years. I've always had my own private businesses. I nearly bought a big real estate company over here during the pandemic that had like multiple offices and stuff. And Darragh from 15 years ago would have done the deal. And the Darragh now, a little bit more reserved and conservative in thinking, was like, well, you know what? Just give it a moment. Give it a moment.
Don't buy on the fear of missing out anymore.
Yeah, correct. And I used to be like really bad for that. Just give it a moment. I mean, I bought a football club on that. I went along to have a look. I walked down the pitch. I always remember the day. And I remember my development guy ringing me. We were building, projects all over the world. And he said, I need 2.5 million to buy some land. I've found a great project, blah, blah, blah. And I said, forget it. I've just bought a football club. And I only just stood out on the pitch and I could hear the silence on the other end of the phone going, what the fuck? You know what I mean? So yeah, I have been impulsive. And sometimes, the worst part about being in business is when you make a few bad moves and you take a few wrong turns and you do some things that don't quite work out, you get down on yourself.
Such a confidence game, isn't it? I mean,
correct.
I feel that
sport.
I feel it every single day.
All the time.
And when you get into business and the risks that you take, people tell you about, you think about a roller coaster and you think, you know what, a roller coaster is cliche, and then you actually do it and you realize, that's probably understating it.
Yeah, you're right. It's you second guess yourself.
Yeah.
You overanalyze. I've always lived this way, decisive. I love decisive people. I have respect for people who maybe aren't as decisive and take their time, and they've probably done better than me in some things. But I like to think I'm pretty decisive. I'm a yes or no type of guy. I hate indecision. I like it's either a yay or it's a nay. If I was selling someone a house, I'd say, Phil, are we paying a deposit today? And Phil would go, well, maybe next week. I go, Phil, I need a yay or a nay. Yeah. So I'd always ask for the business. And that's one thing I'd always do. And I always say this to people, but always ask for the business. If there's something you want, ask the question. There's nothing wrong with being truthful and transparent and being direct, as long as you deliver it in the right way. So for those out there, and I've had loads of emails off loads of people, about struggling and this and that, whatever else. I've said, look, no matter how bad you feel, there's always someone worse than you out there, and it will get better. Yeah. And you have to put one foot in front of the other, and you have to keep your head up. Yeah. And you got to be positive. And that's just always the way I live my life.
Yeah, absolutely. I can just add on that there's been days when I thought my business was not going to survive another day. And, you put the work in, and sometimes luck happens, and sometimes you create your own luck, and opportunities come up at the right moment in time.
Correct.
That, you soldier on. And then we talked about cyclicality last week about football. That's sometimes the case in business.
You fight.
You just got to keep going.
You fight because you have a reason to fight. What's your reason to fight?
Yeah, I mean, I want to do it because I want to have something that, provides for my family. I want to have an impact in the community that I serve.
Typical liberal, that.
Yeah,
I want to have an impact on the world. You probably drive an electric car, Phil, do you?
Yeah, not yet.
I'm only joking. I apologise to liberals out there, by the way, upset by that.
Yeah, that's one of the things for business. I had to trade my nice car in for a minivan. So. But you got to take the punches sometimes.
You do. You roll with the punches, and you know what? Even the best get their ass kicked. Yeah. People seem to think, like, people email me, oh, God, you're so wonderful. You've made so much money and life must be great. And I was like, I have my ass kicked. Yeah. You've seen it happen in sports so many times. I thought a few months ago when the pandemic started that, Jesus, football might never come back. And my club could go. And I've got hundreds of people who work for me, me and my partners. So it's a human instinct to be nervous. It's a human instinct to worry about everything. What was it they used to say to me? My mom used to always say to me, my dad could take pressure unbelievably. He would have the best night's sleep even when things weren't going well. I'm the opposite. I go to sleep with a busy mind, and it's just so much in my mind. And that dictates the mood I wake up in the next day. And I've said this before, I like to bounce out of bed in a great mood because that's just who I am. And then the shit starts rolling downhill and you get the punches. And sometimes you have to roll with the punches.
Well, let's wrap up for this week.
Sure.
I'd love to dig more into, we've got plenty more questions, but I want to make sure that we're not, 2 hours later into another bunch of questions. That's not to say, don't keep them coming in because...
Sure. Absolutely, guys.
We got questions from John, Hugo, God, Nick, Robert. There's many other listeners here that we've got on the list, and we're going to come to them. We may not come to them next week, but we're going to come to them because lots of interesting questions, both about business and, of course, the inside kind of the business of football.
Listen, anyone out there, whether it's business, football, life in general, I'd ask a couple of things of you. We're happy to talk about anything. Spread the word about the podcast. We're doing well in the charts. We'd like to do better. Tell your friends, put it out there on social media. All the support we can get, we appreciate. Yeah. And God bless you all, and much love to everyone out there.
Yeah, and we'll be back next week, Wednesday, August the 5th. We're doing our first international, with you being back in the UK.
Sounds good.
I'll be still here in sunny and sometimes stormy Florida. So, until then, thanks for listening, everybody.
Take care, guys.
Thanks for tuning in to today's show. If you have a question or to contact Darragh or I, email us directly at contact@hardtruthfootball.com. That's contact@hardtruthfootball.com.